For our next program, the user is going to enter any number, and then the calculator is going to determine if that number is positive, negative, or neither. Something that if you had a number written on your piece of paper, oh, it's 5. Oh, I could just look at it and go, it's positive. I got negative 12. Oh, it's negative. Obviously, you're just looking to see what the sign is, right? Oh, we have a negative sign here. This one doesn't. It must be positive. That's all we have to do. But whenever you're putting it into a program, though, the calculator can't just look at that number and make the same judgment that you make in a microsecond. It has to be based on some kind of like definition of what it means to be positive. So, hey, what does this mean? What's it mean for a number to be positive? It means that that number is greater than 0. X is greater than 0. So that gives us something to test. If it's greater than 0, then the number is positive. Do you hear what I just said? Yes, that was a conditional statement. If x is greater than 0, then x is positive. Right? A conditional statement that we can test out. For example, let's say I take this positive 5 that's right here. Is 5 greater than 0? Yes. So this condition is satisfied. Remember, in the calculator way this works is that we return a number 1, which means true, which tells the calculator this condition is satisfied. So then this part, the then part, is carried out. And I would say that 5 is positive. What about this negative 12 here? Is negative 12 greater than 0? Nope, it's not. So it doesn't do anything. And it doesn't do anything because I haven't accounted for what happens when your number is not bigger than 0. Well, let's go back up here. And what's it mean for a number to be negative? To be negative, our x has to be less than 0. And then our final condition here for neither, of course, that means that x is equal to 0. Now, if you have multiple conditions to check, and we do, you can see that we essentially have 3 different conditions, whether it's greater than 0, less than 0, or equal to 0. If you have more than one condition, you have to separate them with else. If x is greater than 0, then x is positive. Else, think of it as the word otherwise, then this is what I do. What if I did this? Else x is negative. Let's try this out now. Let's say I take this negative 12. If x is greater than 0, so is negative 12 greater than 0? Nope. Okay, so this part is ignored, and then it says else negative 12 is negative. That's correct. All right, so that fits the description. It seems to work out just fine, but what if our number is 0? So now if I take this 0, is 0 greater than 0? Nope, this is a false statement, so it's ignored. Else 0 is negative. Well, that's not exactly true. So I actually did not account for this one. I have to make this a little bit more complex. So let's back this up, get rid of this statement, and I'm going to put another if-then statement along with it. Else if x is less than 0, then x is negative. And then I can take care of the 0 as the very final case. In that very final case, it's the only thing that's left over. It is not greater than 0, it's not less than 0, so it must be 0. You don't have to code that one with an if-then statement. You can just simply say, else x is 0. Or you can use the word neither if you want to. So let's see how it is that we're supposed to get this into the calculator. So whenever you're doing these little calculator programs, I'd recommend that you kind of brainstorm this idea on your paper first, and then you can start coding it into the calculator. Now, this whole argument is based on some number x, so that assumes that we're going to have to get the number x from the user as either an input or a prompt. So we'll have to start it there. And then we probably want to tell the user what it is that we're looking for. We're looking for a number, right? So you give me a number, and then I'm going to tell you whether that number is positive, negative, or neither one. So let me pull up the camera so we can see the calculator right here. Okay, so super important that your calculator's not on, and this one's not, so I'll turn it on. Okay, we're going to start ourselves a new program, so go to the Program button. And we want to make a new one. Scroll over to New, Create New, hit Enter. And remember, this flashing A means that it's in alpha lock, so you can start typing. And we'll just call this one something simple like POS for positive. That looks good. Hit Enter. Okay, now remember each line of code is denoted by these little colons here. You can put extra ones if you wanted to. Anyway, we're going to start off with a display. Stage 1 is the input from the user stage. So I need to tell them what I want, and I get that number from them. So we started with a display. That's under the Program menu. CTL means control. IO means input output. And it's number 3, display there. So hit number 3. And there's a space after the cursor right there, or in between the cursor and the word display, I should say. That indicates that you get to type something. And if you want text to come up on the screen, like writing to come up on the screen, you have to surround it in quotation marks, which is right there above the plus sign. It's in green, so we got to alpha lock this down. So alpha lock, some quotation marks, and then just keep it short and sweet, something like enter a number. And that's assuming that you can spell all of this stuff in this alphabetical keyboard. Enter. Yeah. If I want a space, that's right above the 0 key here. Enter A. And then I am going to truncate that word as NUM for number. Otherwise, this video is going to be 30 minutes long for me to find all of those letters. All right, end it with some quotation marks as well. And then hit enter, go down to the next line. So that's all it's going to do is say this on the screen. And then we need to get the number from them. To do that, it's under the input-output menu again, so go to Program. And then over here in input-output, we could either use input or prompt. Input just puts a question mark on the screen. Prompt puts the actual variable that you're going to use, and they don't need to know what the variable is, so input's just fine. So I'm going to do that one. We'll call it X. It's the easiest one to pick because it has its own dedicated key, and then hit enter. So there's the first stage of the program is done. I've gotten the number from the user. Now I'm going to do my conditional statements, the calculation phase. So the conditional statements, I'm going to start with an if, and that if is underneath the control menu. You can see if, then, and else. And those are the 3 that we're always going to use in these kind of programs. So hit if. Notice where the cursor is. There's a space in between the word if and the cursor. That indicates that we're supposed to type after the word if. You put the condition that you want the calculator to check. So we're going to do the positive one first. If x is greater than 0. So here's my x. Greater than is under the test menu, which is in blue. So hit second, test. And greater than is that number 3, 0. All right, now ordinarily if you write this on a piece of paper, like in English, you put a little comma here because, that's the syntax we're supposed to use, but you don't do that on the calculator. You just hit enter. What follows if? Then. It's under the same menu. Program, control, number 2 right there is then. Notice where the cursor is. The cursor is right after the word then, right after the N, and there's no space. This indicates that you're not supposed to type anything on that line. It gets its own line. Hit enter. And now you tell the calculator what to do if that condition x greater than 0 is met. And what we want it to do is just tell us that that number is a positive number. We're going to display that on the screen. So hit Program, IO, it's the number 3, display. We want to put it in quotation marks that it's positive. So alpha lock it, alpha lock, some quotation marks. And I'm just going to say pause, POS I should say, because again, I don't want to have to type, what? POS, I don't have to type all that stuff out. Right, that's going to be good. And now hit enter. All right, now I've got 2 more conditions to check. I have to separate all of these conditions with the word else. So I go to Program, And it's number 3 this time. And notice where the cursor is. Just like the word then, the cursor is right after the word else, indicating that you leave it alone. Don't type anything. Just hit enter. Gets its own line. And now you tell the calculator what to do if that first condition's not met. Well, I've got a second one, so we're going to test that second one with another if-then statement. So if, type the condition. This next one's going to be negative, so it'll be x is less than 0. X, let's see, where is less? Oh, that's right, it's under the test menu. So here, and it's number 5, 0. There's the condition, no comma, hit enter. What follows if? The word then. So go to program. Number 2 this time. Dang it. Okay, so there's no undo button. You just have to go and type over it or hit delete or something or clear. There we go. I got it this time. Then gets its own line. And then what I want it to do if x is less than 0 is tell us that that number is negative. So display once again. So program IO number 3 alpha lock quotation marks NEG should do it for negative. Okay, so that second condition is met, but notice that we haven't satisfied 0, so that's the last one. We want to separate them once again with the word else, number 3. Okay, and I don't have to make that a conditional statement because it's the only other thing that's left over. It's not greater than 0, it's not less than 0, it must be 0. So just display on this one. So IO, number 3, and then just say 0. Yes, alpha lock, okay. Well, let's see if we can type out the word 0. It's our challenge for today. 0. Oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm actually going to use the number 0 as the O in 0. What? All right. Boop. All right, that's it. That's the end of the program. Now, always what you want to do is test it out. See if it works. See if you covered all the bases. And if there's some sort of mistake, any error, make sure you hit go to so that you can see where you're supposed to fix that error. So we'll go back over here to program. We're going to execute this time POS. And it says enter a number. Let's do something like 89. I don't know. It tells me it's positive. All right, hit enter again. Let's do something that I know is supposed to be negative. How about negative 23? It tells me it's negative. Fantastic. Now let's check 0 to make sure that it also works. 0. Oh, wow. Yeah, 0 is 0. All right, so there you have it. That's our first program using conditional statements, some if-then statements. What I'm going to recommend that you do, let me go back to the slideshow just real quick here. I'm going to recommend that you write down on your reference card, because you get to use this whenever we take a quiz or a test over this stuff. Write down where the if and the then are and what they do. Like, for example, the if part that's right here, it's located under the program menu, and then you go to CTL control. It sets up a condition to be tested. You follow that with a then. You maybe make some sort of note that then gets its own line. It's under the same menu, tells the calculator what to do if this condition up here is satisfied. Here's an example right up here, just exactly what we typed in. Okay, but if there's multiple conditions that you have to test, you want to follow that up with an else statement. And that else statement is in the same place. I think it's like number 3. Separate each of your conditions with the word else. And just like the word then, it's going to get its own line.